Good morning, guys. Feeling a little bit anxious this morning. It was hard to sleep with everything happening. And I guess just it's a lot of responsibility being a new nurse, and this is not helping the situation. When you're a new nurse, like, this is a very common thing that, like, pretty much everyone that I talk to that's new says that, like, when you go to sleep, you think about, like, everything that happened in the day and all the things that might have gone wrong, the medications that you gave, you know, did you make any mistakes? Did you do anything wrong? Did you forget anything? So that's kind of what happens when you try to close your eyes at night. So it can get hard to sleep in the beginning just because you're not used to it yet. And then plus everything else going on. So I'm just heading in this morning again. And I heard on the radio that there's now 94 cases in Quebec and 24 in Montreal, 13 in Montérégie. So, yeah, total 94, and I think we're up to the 700s in Canada. And we had a death in Quebec, but it was an elderly lady who was in frail health. So, so we'll see what today brings. I think we have quite a few cases. Home at last. Oh, it's locked. Of course. Oh my goodness. Pets, pets, pets.
For like 25 minutes.
After a long day, good to come home to the pets. Of course, Maya only loves David. At least I have the filthy cat to adore me. Petsy, love me. Hey guys, so now that I'm home officially, I wanted to kind of like recap my day, give a little bit of a mini update on what's going on with sort of the COVID-19 thing at the hospital, like where we're at, and also just talk a little bit about how I'm personally managing anxiety at this time, because I mentioned this morning that I was feeling pretty anxious and having a hard time sleeping, just being a new nurse and dealing with this whole situation. And I've talked to quite a few people who've mentioned to me that their anxiety has like sort of skyrocketed. And so I wanted to bring that up as well. So pretty much for, you know, a mini update, I guess. Today was my second solo shift. It was a good day. It was smooth, but they are definitely emptying the floor. When I went in this morning, most of the other nurses only had 3 or 4 patients, and that's just like unheard of. Like pretty much like you always have 5. You might have 4, but you're gonna get a new admission, like it's happening. So you pretty much don't have that. You don't see that ever. And the reason why that is because they're getting ready. And everyone knows what's happening. And there's a sort of like a nervous feeling associated with that for sure. Today, the educator on the floor was going around and individually taking each of us aside and showing us how to put on the protective gear, and then asking us to show back. So they had a set of protective gear, and each of us had to kind of show how we would do it. And there's like a particular order that everything needs to be put on, and a particular order that everything needs to be taken off in order to properly protect ourselves. So I think it's great that the educator went to each individual to ensure that everybody knows exactly how to do it for the event that we need to, which we may. We had to use like an imaginary mask because we just don't have enough to practice with real masks. So we need to keep all the masks that we have for real situations. And we don't even have like, everybody is, so N95s, if you don't know, are masks that are fitted to your face. So what makes a difference between an N95 and a regular mask is that a regular mask, the ones that you see, those sort of like, just like the paper ones that like go on here that you could just get at the doctor's office or whatever, those ones they don't have as many filters. They're sort of flimsy and air gets in the side, and so they're not fitted to your face. Those masks, they do protect you to a certain extent, but when we're talking about aerosolized droplets, so what COVID-19 is, that the thing with COVID-19 is that it when you sneeze or when you cough, the droplets become aerosolized, and so you can breathe those in the air. And so that's the problem with those masks that are just those flimsy little paper masks, because they have holes in the sides, and so it's in the air at that point, and it can go in through the sides of the mask. So it's not airborne in the same sense as some other things where it stays in the air for extended periods of time, but it becomes aerosolized. The droplets become aerosolized for a short period or for a few hours, and so that's why it's important to wear the N95 mask. They are fitted to your face. Make sure that it's totally airtight. And so a lot of people are buying these masks and wearing them, but they're not necessarily properly fitted to their face. So they're not as effective. They're probably more effective than those little flimsy masks for sure, but they're not as effective if they're not fitted to your face properly. So we right now at the hospital don't have everybody's size. So we're kind of having to make do. It's definitely a little scary to know that like we don't have the materials that we need, but we're not the only ones. A lot of other hospitals all around Canada, like it's on the news, people are saying we don't have enough supplies, we don't have the materials that we need. This is a problem for everybody, it's not just us. So yeah, so that's a bit of an issue, but I've mentioned this in other videos that's an ongoing problem right now. I guess that's the update. In terms of what I mentioned earlier this morning, which was talking about a little bit about anxiety, a lot of people have mentioned to me that they are feeling really anxious, and I have been feeling really anxious, sometimes having trouble sleeping, and just feeling stressed about just like the unknown of what's going to happen. And I guess when you're new at work, it's stressful, but also like when you're new and you don't know what is to come, it's even more stressful. And I think that unknown, for me, it's related to work, but for other people, it could be related to work, it could be related to family, it could be related to personal health, it could be related to a number of things. Unknowns make people anxious. And for people who are already prone to anxiety, that's just worse. It just makes it worse. So I think I'm just going to share some of the things that I have been doing to sort of manage those feelings, because I'm definitely not an expert, but what I have been trying to do personally to deal with that is just to kind of try to balance or strike a balance between focusing on the facts in the media and just knowing, okay, what are the numbers, like what's happening right now, and what can I do as a person that's sort of tangible, and not letting myself get swept away by a million different articles and by people making projections of what will happen and what could happen and what's going to happen, because that is where I find my mind gets really like I get ahead of myself in terms of fear and worry and concern that there's going to be like food scarcity and that there's going to be that this situation that's transpired in Italy is going to happen here in the hospital and that I'm going to have to deal with that, etc., etc. And I think it's the same thing for everybody else, but maybe they're not worried about the same things, but it's the same in terms of like when you let your mind kind of like run ahead, it's very stressful and it makes you anxious. So I try to like strike that balance between knowing, like reading about what's going on and being aware, but also not letting myself get too far ahead and not doing a deep dive and just being cautious about like not spending too much time reading the news. And then I kind of try to spend enough time on self-care and just making sure that like, because I'm working a lot right now, making sure that when I come home that I kind of disconnect from work and that I'm taking care of myself. And I think a lot of people are working from home and a lot of people are just at home, but not necessarily doing those self-care things. So I think it's good to make that like that time and to really say like, okay, this is the time that I'm going to do the things that I know like rejuvenate me or make me feel better. And like for me, those things are like, you know, taking walks or like taking a bath or like spending time, you know, talking on the phone with my sister or talking with my friends, listening to music, playing music. Like those things make me feel better and they kind of like, they lift me up. And so if I don't take the time though out of my schedule to do those things, like I will just spend all of my time like working and studying and go to sleep and rinse and repeat, and then I'll start to feel like worn out. And I know that when you're working at home, like there's no more division between work and home. So I can imagine that for people who are working at home, that can become an issue. So yeah, I would think that it's even more important for you guys that are at home, working at home, to sort of really consider making that time and like making a schedule for yourself to be like, nope, like at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whenever, like my work day is over. It's easy to feel like really isolated and alone in your anxiety. But I think everybody's experiencing it. It's the unknown of what's going to happen is really stressful for everybody, and this is like the epitome of unknowns. I just wanted to touch on the whole anxiety thing because I know that I'm not the only one. I know that I'm not the only one who's having trouble sleeping at night, and I know that I'm not the only one who has worries. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what I'm doing to try to get through it, and I hope other people will share too, and we'll feel less alone collectively. Okay, I'll try to do another update tomorrow or the next day. I'm trying to do them as frequently as I can and as frequently as I have time for. Okay.